This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up in the context of those stories, and help each other understand.
At least we try. Today, Bodie Grimm's given us a little assist, telling us about the environmental impact of electric vehicles. A lot of debate around that. And Microsoft has some new, slightly smaller Surface laptops.
Ooh, I'm Jason Howell.
I'm Tom Merritt.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. Or maybe we should call it the slightly smaller story. Microsoft unleashed a slew of announcements this morning, a whole gaggle of them, beginning with a new, more compact 13-inch Surface laptop. This one starts at $899, and apologies, incoming influx of specifications, but just so you know, it's powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Plus 8-core processor, 16 gigs RAM, 256 and 512 gig storage options. You get around 16 hours of battery life on that one. Microsoft removed the Surface Connect charging port, as well as Windows Hello facial recognition. That's in an effort to reduce the footprint of the device and lower the price of the laptop, of course. Users will have to use their fingerprint if they want to go biometric for access as a result. And then there is another device. Microsoft also launched the Surface Pro 12-inch. This is a compact tablet that starts at $799 in the US, features the same processor, same RAM, same storage as the Surface laptop that I just mentioned. The 12-inch LCD display uses a 90 hertz refresh panel. There is no upgrade option to OLED if that's your preference, sorry. It does drop the Surface Connect charging port for two USB-C 3.2 ports. It adopts a fanless design, so that's kind of nice, with a rounded chassis along with a redesigned flat keyboard. Apparently the previous keyboard had a little bit of a slant to it. This one lays flat on the tabletop. That sells separately for $149. And then the Slim Pen, the Surface Slim Pen, doesn't mount into the device. It magnetically attaches and charges on the back of the device. And Microsoft's done some work to make sure that when it snaps there, it's not going to cut loose very easily if you throw it in your backpack. I think that remains to be seen how true that is, but both devices qualify as Copilot Plus PCs thanks to the inclusion of that Snapdragon X Plus chip. So you get recall, you get AI powered Windows search, and a host of other AI related features are present there as well. So, okay, slightly smaller. What do you think, Tom? I'm not really invested in the Surface technology world myself. I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so half pound lighter for the 12-inch, and I think like a third of a pound lighter for the 13-inch. So there's some weight concerns there that are pretty significant for people who are on the go a lot. I think it was Engadget pointed out that with current sales, which may or may be gone by the time you look, the new Surface Pro 12-inch is the same price as the bigger one, which isn't going away. They're not discontinuing the previous ones. And the 13.8-inch Surface laptop is actually cheaper right now than this new, less well-spec'd out Surface laptop. So I'm a little curious what the niche is here that they're serving, because it's clearly not price. There's not that much of a price difference with them. Maybe it's parts. Maybe the parts are cheaper to make, so they can continue to make them for a longer time. Certainly, though, they're small. They're a little bit smaller and lighter weight. And maybe that's something they found in their data, is that people were holding off because they wanted something like that. Microsoft's hardware is always a little bit of a weird strategy anyway, because they want competitors to make these kinds of laptops and hybrids themselves and compete with Microsoft. Microsoft calls these sort of reference designs, if you will.
Yeah, that is interesting. I was looking into that as well to kind of see what the previous generations were running. And I mean, it's the same on both sides, right? Like you're talking about the 2024 Surface laptop, that's coming in at $799 right now. Same price if you go to Amazon and Best Buy right now. They're on sale at the moment. So who knows when those sales go away? Yeah, also, exactly. How long does it take for Microsoft to start adjusting the prices when you're talking about the Surface Pro 12-inch? That's at $799, or sorry. Yeah, that's legitimately at $799.
Yeah.
And matching what Microsoft is offering there. So it's a little puzzling now. Maybe it'll make more sense as things kind of level out in the next month or two. I don't really follow how Microsoft, does its pricing. I know when I'm talking about Google and their Pixel prices, often it's kind of like, this is what you're paying now, but the standing recommendation is wait a couple of months, because guaranteed Google always drops the price a couple of $100, through sales and stuff. And maybe it's just the same with Microsoft right now. It's confusing. In a couple of months, it'll make more sense.
Yeah, probably. And maybe these larger models do get discontinued once they move through the inventory or something like that, like you say. I think a lot of people are making a big deal over the fact that these are now USB-C charged instead of having the Surface Connect charging port. But that seems to be the way of the future. Some of it, I think, is just the fact that you can make a slimmer design. You can use USB-C. It's very reliable, and people have the chargers. And it's definitely affected by the EU saying, you need to have USB-C charging in your new devices. So they don't want to have to make different SKUs for Europe and the rest of the world. So that's a big part of it too. How do you feel about that? I kind of like it. I know it's some people don't like the fact that it's not shipping with a charger in the 12-inch case, and so you'll have to add that on. But if you already have a USB-C charger, you don't really need one.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, I am swimming in cables and chargers and everything. Now, granted, this is part of my job, is to, manage and test and all sorts of things,
Sure.
All of these different
You're going to have more than
technologies.
the average person, probably.
I'm going to have more than the average person, but I would venture to expect that the majority of people, maybe it's not an overwhelming majority, but probably more than 50% of people already have what they need to charge when it comes to USB-C technology. And I'm all for standards that make things easier as far as charging is concerned.
Yeah.
Not you need this very particular specific thing in order to do it. So,
although don't forget, not all wall warts are created equal.
Yeah, that's true.
So you do need more wattage for some of these, but
yeah.
I think most people can deal with that. I love that USB-C can charge everything now, and that we're finally moving into that world. And I'm finding fewer and fewer needs for USB-A. I'm actually finding that I end up putting these little Anchor A to C adapters at the end of my USB-A cables so that they're always ready for USB-C, and then I can just pop them off if I need to.
Yeah, very, very handy. I like that too. But that's not all. No, real quick, just to mention, Microsoft also announced a bunch of new features for Windows 11 and Copilot. I'd say too many to list them all, but there are a few standouts when I was poking through. There's an AI agent for finding and adjusting settings in Windows 11, basically conversational voice entry for settings manipulation.
How do I do this kind of thing?
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Which I think is really great. I love that we're seeing that more in mobile devices and laptops. If it works. Yeah, exactly. An expansion of Click to Do that includes Excel table conversions, drafting into Word, scheduling team meetings. That's kind of a new feature that they're opening up. A heavily leaked, apparently, redesign of the start menu that includes all apps, because why not have all apps in your start menu? That makes sense to me. A photos relight feature for adding light sources and setting different focal points in your pictures and photos. And then a perfect screenshot, AI-driven screenshot cropping feature. A bunch of AI features, because this is the year 2025.
Yeah, and they want you to buy a Copilot PC the next time you buy a PC.
Indeed.
Well, we might be able to buy a Copilot PC because of you, the listeners, supporting us. We certainly wouldn't be able to do the show without you. So big thanks to Brad, Kevin Morgan, and Paul Thiessen. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. All right, there's more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
OpenAI is going to change its corporate structure. And you may say, well, that's not going to impact my life directly. But what they were and what they're going to be is helpful to understand why the company will do some things differently. So if you know this, like I said, it may not impact your daily life, but when OpenAI makes a decision, you may go, oh, that's because of that thing that Tom explained to me on DTNS. So first, here's where they come from. OpenAI was started as a nonprofit with the idea of making sure any super intelligent model was not in the control of a private enterprise. That limited investments, though, and as more private companies came into the market, OpenAI created a subsidiary that was capped profit. That meant they could get investors now because they could make money back, but each investor could only make 100 times its investment back. So they got some investors like Microsoft on board, but still it was limited who would buy in. Some people would not invest because of that cap. So recently, OpenAI was planning to create a fully for-profit company and spin it out of the nonprofit parent company. The nonprofit company would stay as a foundation, but it would be unrelated to the for-profit company. The idea would be that the nonprofit would have a stake in the for-profit company, but just not control it, and therefore there would be no limits on investments. Well, that's not what OpenAI has ended up doing. The for-profit company is still going to remove the cap on profits and become what's called a public benefit company, or PBC. A PBC serves goals other than profit for investors, often environmental or social goals. In this case, it's going to be the same mission as the original nonprofit, to benefit humanity, though the details have yet to be published. So we haven't seen exactly how they express that, but that's what they're saying the idea is. That was actually always the plan for this for-profit arm, but the change is that the nonprofit parent company, with its fiduciary duty to humanity instead of investors, will remain in control of the public benefit corporation, though we don't know how large its stake will be. This is very similar to what Mozilla does with Firefox. Firefox is a for-profit enterprise, but the Mozilla Foundation is a nonprofit that controls it. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. OpenAI says it changed its mind after discussion with attorneys general in California and Delaware who would have needed to approve the restructuring.
Okay, well, thank you for going through that, because that's definitely helpful for me, because this can be a little bit of a complicated spider web to follow along at this point. One thing that stands out for me, though, and I think it's hilarious, is the benefit humanity thing, which is, who defines and to serve what purpose, and the correlation that I can draw there is like AGI. It's like defined by whom and to serve what purpose. They're both as cloudy, as clear as mud.
Well, and that's why I made a point of saying they have not yet published the terms, so to speak, of what that means. So it'll be interesting to see how they express it. But what I do think is significant is a regular corporation only has a fiduciary duty to its investors. So all it does is benefit the investors, whereas a public benefit company says, actually, no, the investors aren't the only concern. They are still a concern, but there are bigger concerns. And that way, if an investor tries to bring a lawsuit and say, you need to do this because it'll make me more money, a public benefit company can say, actually, no, we have to serve this other goal first, and it supersedes you. So like you say, the devil's in the details about how they describe those goals, but it does put other goals in front. And they were always going to do that with the for-profit company. The big news here is that the nonprofit will stay in control. We don't know how much of a stake it's going to have in the PBC, but they did say it will stay in control.
Interesting. Definitely appreciate your walkthrough on that. Thank you. Google posted, then deleted a blog post showcasing Material 3 Expressive, one of its major announcements from the upcoming Google I/O Developer Conference that's going to take place a little bit later in this month on May 20th. The update is described as the, quote, most researched UI update. It saw 46 rounds of design changes over 3 years. Research, more than 18,000 participants were involved, apparently. The goal is to make Android's interface more visually appealing, engaging, and easier to use. So you can expect to see some bold colors, a variety of shapes and sizes, and lots of motion in the interface when it's officially announced. The song that came to mind is, "Oops, Google did it again. It gave you a blog and leaked all the news. Ooh, baby, baby."
Kids, ask your parents. No, that's really good. It looked rounder. That was my first impression.
Rounder, yes.
Yeah.
It continues to get rounder and pillier.
Yeah, rounder and pillier is what I expect at Google I/O on May 20th. Amazon updated its Kindle app for the iOS to include a new Get Book button. This comes after the recent court ruling in the Epic Games versus Apple case. preventing Apple from blocking external links to other payment methods. They weren't actually blocking them. They just put so many restrictions on them that a lot of them couldn't be done, or you still had to share 27% of your revenue. Apple's not doing that anymore. So you can now quickly buy an ebook by tapping a button, which takes you to an Amazon page to purchase it, and then it'll show up in your Kindle app, like you would expect it to work. The book automatically syncs to the device once the purchase is complete.
That's like magic. That's amazing.
Yeah, it only took a court case and an appeal and an injunction and an overrule and I don't know what else to make this happen. But hey, here we are.
And a decade's worth of work.
Yeah.
Timing. YouTube is testing a new premium subscription plan designed for 2 people. In a pilot taking place in India, France, Taiwan, and Hong Kong currently anyways. The price of the 2-person plan sits, as you might imagine, between the individual and family tiers. It resembles Spotify's Duo offering, so it's really targeting pairs, so couples, roommates, that sort of thing. Users must be 13 and over and belong to the same Google family group. No word on whether the plan will expand to other countries. I have a feeling it might.
I wonder if this is targeting me, Jason, because we have a 2-person and 1-dog household, and I saw nothing about dogs in here, so I assume it's just 2 humans.
Yep.
But we have a family plan, which allows us to have more than 2 people, so we share our YouTube family plan with Eileen's sister, and then she gets the ad-free YouTube Premium and such. It's going to make us go like, we could save some money by dropping her, making her pay for her own plan. I don't think we'll do that, but it will make us think about it. So
certainly.
Yeah. Got a couple of self-driving vehicle stories for you. Aurora Innovation is out of the testing phase and claims it is now the first company to launch a commercial self-driving trucking service with heavy-duty trucks on public roads in the U.S. If you're like, didn't they already say this? Yes, for 4 years we've been covering them with various tests. Now it's real. Now it's actually a commercial service. It's happening. Aurora trucks are now carrying loads for Hirschbach Motor Lines and Uber Freight between Dallas and Houston, Texas. Company plans to expand to El Paso and Phoenix by the end of the year. Speaking of Uber and China's WeRide will expand their autonomous taxi service to 15 additional cities over the next few years. The 2 companies already operate a ride-hailing service in Abu Dhabi and will soon launch in Dubai with plans to expand to Europe and elsewhere outside of China and the U.S. Uber handles the software that gets people their rides, and WeRide handles the autonomous vehicle tech that moves the cars around.
I feel like the auto taxi or the autonomous taxi thing is, every week there is a ton of news on this. It feels like it's, I don't know.
It's rolling
feels like
along.
It's developing.
It's moving.
It's
down
rolling
the road.
along. Yes, it's smooth ride.
Yeah,
it's a smooth ride for
got its own momentum.
Instacart is getting boozy with the launch of Fizz, a new app designed to make group ordering of drinks and snacks for parties easier. Also, it's very appealing to Gen Z users, apparently. Multiple users can add and pay for their own items in a single delivery for a flat $5 fee. The app integrates with event platform Partiful, linking orders to a single event invite, as one example. Fizz also features a loyalty program called Snack Bucks, so you get discounts on your snacks, as you can imagine.
Snack Bucks!
Snack Bucks.
This made me think of Drizzly, which DoorDash owns now, but the key here is being able to pay for your own items in a delivery that's coming to the place you're going. So you don't have to swing by the convenience store and pick up the beer. You just pay for it and have it delivered. And then people can criticize what beer you chose.
That's true.
Recent Roku OS update, version 14.5, has caused widespread problems with HDR content on a number of Roku TVs. It seems to be mostly affecting TVs, not the Roku sticks or the Roku boxes, but it results in washed out colors. The issue first appeared on Disney Plus, and some people are saying it only affected Disney Plus, but other people reported, well, now it's happening to Netflix for me, or Apple TV Plus, or Prime Video, or YouTube TV. It's been reported happening on TCL, Hisense, and Sharp TVs that run the Roku OS. Non-HDR devices are not affected. The update was rolled out automatically, and users can't easily revert to a previous version because you didn't choose to update it, so there's not an easy way for you to de-update it. I mean, there are ways. you can do it, but they're not going to be easy. And there's no workaround that has been issued yet. But Roku said it is investigating the matter.
I imagine so. There were a lot of people who were demanding it. Things are unwatchable now. My Thursday night TV viewing was ruined. Good.
I saw somebody post a picture of Andor in the non-washed out and in the washed out. And I'm like, yeah, that would be pretty annoying. Like,
that would
It looks
suck.
like a bad Instagram filter was applied to everything.
You're waiting for the new episode and this is what you get. Yeah, that would suck. We told you just yesterday about a hacker accessing archived chat logs. Telemessage, a spokesperson for Telemessage's parent company, Smarsh, said, quote, out of an abundance of caution, all telemessage services have been temporarily suspended. The dream is over.
Big shocker. I think the biggest news out of here is that I didn't realize Telemessage's parent company was Smarsh.
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 It's fun to say.
There you go. Those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper.
All right. EVs have low emissions, as you know, but there are other negative impacts on the environment along with that. Tom, you spoke with Bodie Grimm from the Kilowatt Podcast about how to get a full view of the environmental impact of electric vehicles.
Bodie, thanks again for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me back on, Tom.
Yeah, so there are a lot of impacts from a vehicle on the environment, and I know a lot of people are familiar with the fact that an electric vehicle isn't going to have the emissions and all of that. And I think a lot of people talk about the disposal of them, but let's talk about the creation of them today.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're driving an EV around, it's more efficient than a nice car. However, like you said, when you are digging into the ground, there's no denying that there's an environmental impact when you're getting those raw materials. And then you have to process them and you have to transport them multiple times. So there's definitely an impact on that side.
Who's responsible for that?
Well, most of the work isn't done by the automakers themselves. Obviously, they rely on suppliers that specialize in things like mining, refining, and manufacturing. And some automakers do a really good job at making sure that their supply chain is clean, ethical, and sustainable, but others, maybe not so great.
All right. So how do we keep track of this then?
Well, there is a coalition of organizations that lead the charge. Every year they put out a leaderboard of which automakers not only build the cleanest cars, but make sure that the materials come from clean sources, the workers are treated fairly, and the impact on the environment is minimal. And they evaluate 18 of the world's largest automakers.
So is this a name and shame kind of situation?
No, they're actually very fair about this. And they in some cases actually work with the organizations to clean up their supply chain. So like you said, it's not about calling people on the carpet. It's about being transparent and accountable. They take all of this data, and it's a lot of data. You can read how they put this whole thing together. But the idea is to spotlight areas of improvement, but also to highlight when somebody does a good job.
I like this. I like the idea of saying, let's not just shout at people. Let's actually provide solutions to say, like, hey, if we want to make this more efficient for everybody, if we want to make this less wasteful for everybody, here's how we do it. And let's call out not only people who could need improvement, we can help the people who need improvement, but let's call out the people who made improvements too. I like that a lot.
Yeah, they started this in 2023, so you can look back to 2023. But for 2025, when you look at the overall, like who led in the top three, for instance, for 2025, you're looking at Tesla's at the number one spot, and then Ford and Mercedes-Benz. But then if you're like, well, I want to know who did the best in terms of environmental performance.
Yeah.
You can
so you take out the worker stuff and the other considerations, just pure environment. Who did the best?
Right. And that's Volvo, Tesla, and Mercedes.
Okay.
But if you care about the human rights, you can look and you'll see that Ford ranks highest in that category, followed by Tesla's. And again, Mercedes at a solid 3 spot.
And this is all at leadthecharge.org. That's their website, right?
That is their website. Yep.
Okay.
But it goes further than that because, like I said, they collect a bunch of data. So if you want to know more about what a specific automaker is doing, then you could just click on that particular automaker and you'll see a summary, key findings. There's great visuals and graphs and charts. And then they make the information really easy to digest because there is a lot of it on there. And if they just wrote it out all in text, it would be mind-numbing.
That's really cool. I like the fact that this is a source of information for people, and it looks like a pretty comprehensive one to me.
Yeah, I think everybody can agree that we, as much as possible, we would like to buy things that come from a clean supply chain, treat their workers fair, and it's a sustainable process. But to be honest with you, Tom, because this has started, like I said, in 2023, I started interviewing the company in 2024, or the organization. And I thought we were much further along than we are when it comes to a clean supply chain. But in reality, I was a little off.
And you have one example of how Lead the Charge does have effects, and how it can help a company change its processes to make it more efficient, make it less wasteful. And it involves a group that I think is very close to my heart. Tell me about this.
So there is a group called K-pop for Planet, and there's a membership, and maybe you and Eileen will join, but it's 88,000 members strong. That's a lot of people across 200 and some countries. I can't remember what it said on their website, but this is a big organization of K-pop fans.
And it's across groups too. So if you're like, wait, I'm a LE SSERAFIM fan, am I going to be allowed in here? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You're in.
Yep, they welcome everybody. So this year when I interviewed the Lead the Charge folks, one of the folks that I talked to was Glenn Hurowitz, who is the founder of Mighty Earth. And he mentioned that Hyundai had an aluminum supplier that they had some questionable behavior when it comes to land grabs, human rights, and they were just using a massive amount of coal. So Glenn and the team reached out to K-pop for Planet, and they actually showed up at the LA Auto Show. And then, K-pop is, South Korea, Hyundai, South Korea.
Right.
They actually put enough pressure where Hyundai said, you know what, we're going to stop using this supplier. And that's viewed as a success in the K-pop for Planet world, as well as the Lead the Charge world.
Okay, so it's the very famous organizational prowess of K-pop fans using the leaderboard information to make some change. It seems like a good change.
Yeah, and to Hyundai's credit, they listened and they stopped using that supplier. If we need to, if we could just give that supplier a little bit of credit, according to a Reuters article, they are planning, and whether this was in the pipeline or not, I don't know, but they're planning now to build a hydropower plant for their aluminum smelter. So, it's good all the way around.
Yeah. So it's not just having Hyundai use a cleaner source. It sounds like it possibly could have had the effect of making the source use a better, more efficient way of doing the power. So I like that too. Good job, Blinks, Army, Stays, all y'all for getting together on that.
Now, if anybody out there is listening, I would like a Swift for Planet group. I don't have the time to put that whole thing together, but I will join.
Excellent. Bodie, thanks so much for bringing this to our attention. I like all of this, especially the leaderboard. Again, that's leadthecharge.org. If folks want to find what you do, where should they go?
Start off with 918digital.com, and you can see all the things I got going up there, including Kilowatt, which is an electric vehicle podcast.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir.
We listen to you because we make this show for you. So if you got a few minutes, and I really mean just a few minutes, could you fill out our annual DTNS survey? It lets us know what you like about the DTNS families of show, what you don't like about the DTNS family shows. It's fun to do, really helps us shape the show. So go check it out, dailytechnewsshow.com/survey.
And finally, we end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Mike has a question to help us understand.
Yeah, he says, I was fascinated by your story on the use of chromium sulfide bromide to store data on quantum computers from Monday's show. The key attribute was that this substance is 1 atom thick. Chemistry isn't my strong suit, but I think I'm counting 7 atoms in this molecule. So in this molecule, are all the atoms in one line? I'm just imagining the molecule mapping in high school with 1 hydrogen atom connected to 2 oxygen atoms. So I'm just thinking this substance would be thicker. It's a weird question, but you're all smart and have the smartest audience on the internet, and they might have the answer. Thanks for the great show, Mike in Stormy, Virginia. And yes, this was something that was in the article I read yesterday. CRSBR, the chromium sulfide bromide, is layered. They described it as being somewhat like phyllo dough, and there's a process that they used in this research paper to exfoliate the layers, so you end up with atoms all in a line, like you're talking about, that are 1 atom thick sheets. So graphene has a similar process where you can make it be 1 atom thick. However, any physicists in the audience who want to weigh in on this, please do, because I'm not claiming to understand it. That's just what I read from that article.
Well, lucky you, Tom, because I am not a physicist, so I can't help you at all.
Darn it. Yeah.
But I'm curious to know the answer.
Yeah,
So,
please send
definitely.
us any additional information on this. But yes, the idea is that it's 1 atom thick sheets. So that part I can say for sure.
All right. Well, if you've got this answer or you're thinking about something else, you've got insight into another story, whatever it may be, share it with us. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Big thanks to Bodie and Mike for contributing to today's show. And thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. Super quick note, Tom is doing a workshop in Austin, Texas, the weekend of June 27th. And you can find out more at bestnewsever.com.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.